as you can see. And you're like, I'm good. I try to share out the cooler. Or like a... They have one? Over here. We're having a talent show. And then they like rotate. It's really hard to do.
Peloponnesus, we will be here for, as I said, the better part of the week, and you can constantly refer back to this map here. We just came to Athens and down the Isthmus of Corinth, and now we're in the Argolid, which is this area right around here, which those of you who took mythology class, there's a lot here. In fact, we passed Mycenae and Argos and Tiryns all through the next 3 days. So it's really neat. But we start here because it's the chronological beginning. What you're looking at, obviously, way below the Earth's surface as it is now, is the Neolithic levels of this spot. This is very, there was a lake here in ancient times which gave birth to the legend of the Hydra, the multi-headed poisonous serpent that Hercules killed. And so there's been a lot of rising over the years, so that there's a very low level here. What you're looking at is something that's contemporary with the cave of Elathia, Neolithic, the New Stone Age. And what makes Lerna so attractive, again, if you look at the map for a second, it's right in the crotch of this bay here. There's a natural spring no more than 100 meters to this behind us. And in the Neolithic period, besides farming, people fished and they hunted. You need natural water, of course, and that's what you have here. So it's a great spot to settle. And Lerna was the most important area of this part of Greece, as far as we know, for the better part of 1,000 years, maybe even a little longer. The main attraction here is behind us, which we'll go to not next, but it's the house of the, and it's not Spiros either, by the way. It's the house of the tiles, which was built here in the towards the end of the early Bronze Age. But before we get to the house of the tiles itself, I want to take you to the walls here because this is something you haven't really seen yet. In Crete, the Minoans lived very peaceably. There's no walls around their cities. There wasn't a wall around Malea. There wasn't a wall around Knossos. But here we get to the mainland, and the people are more militaristic. They're more paranoid. Of course, you build a wall to keep people out, and a lot of times it's rather remarkable when you look at fortifications, especially the ones that you'll see the next couple of days, to think that these walls were actually taken, that somebody got through them and conquered. But the fortification walls are down here.
No more rocks.
Come on around a little bit farther. If you recall, glancing at this on the beach in Crete the first day, I divided the Bronze Age of Greece into three categories: the Minoan, the Hellatic, and the Cycladic. That's what historians do. And geographically, you're familiar enough with this now. Minoan refers to the island of Crete. And as you can see, since you've experienced it, you've sailed it. Of course, you sail it in a modern ship that can go at 30 knots or whatever, but by ancient standards, that's several days sail. It's 200 miles away. This is the mainland, and this is what we refer to as Hellatic, just using the Greek word for Greece, Hellas, or Hellava. And then when we get to the Cycladic islands at the end, Mykonos and Delos, that's a different culture as well, and you'll see that they're very different. So we're now in Hellatic Greece, and in this early period, in the early Bronze Age, roughly 3000 to 2000, as I've said, you've got people living here who are worried about some invaders. And in fact, the invaders are probably the Greeks. The people who lived here before the Greeks got here. When I say the Greeks, I mean the people who worshiped Zeus, the people who spoke what still today is the Greek language. Before those people came here, there were people living here. Just like there were Native Americans living in America before Europeans got there. We don't have a name for these people. We don't know their language. We don't even really have any writing to speak of. We just call them the early Hellatic peoples. The ancient Greeks called them Pelasgians, which is a term that's used sometimes, but we don't know why really they use that term either. So in general, historically speaking, we refer to these as early Hellatic people. Well, the early Hellatic people were worried about invaders, and as I said, there was a big lake here in ancient times. The sea, you'll see it in a minute, is no more than 200 meters that way, and in ancient times it was probably a lot closer. When you build a wall, you build a wall to keep people out and to protect something that's on the inside. And on the inside is, again, the house of the tiles, which we'll look at. These tile coverings are modern. This is just to protect the ancient stonework. And what you can see in this wall is that you've got basically large stones and mortar that hold them together. Now, archaeologists have shored this up over the years, but you've got this battlement, this tower that comes out. And if you look at, stop slipping down that slide now. If you look at the plan and your red guide, you can see that there were a series, we're standing right here, but you can see there was a series of these in a battlement that probably surrounded the whole territory. Now, Lerna was only excavated in the 1950s, and by the way, this is an American excavation. The University of Cincinnati, which, yeah, I was going to say, I knew somebody had connections. The University of Cincinnati sent the team down here to excavate in the 1950s, and it was a very important excavation. It's really important for American students because all the publications are in English and easy to read, and because this was really one of the first times that archaeologists fully appreciated the Neolithic and the early Bronze Age here in Greece. Things have grown.
Sorry.
And making lip sounds?
And now we're up here in these middle Helladic houses. The dates are pretty easy to remember. The early Bronze Age is 3000 to 2000. The Middle Bronze Age is 2000 to 1600, and the latest is 1200. So Middle Helladic simply means 2000 to 1600. And what the archaeologists discovered here was that the kind of houses that they built were these what they call apsidal houses. And apse, you know, church architecture, and apse is the semicircular part where the altar and so on are in a church. Well, here. Yeah, that's Mycenae is up the coast farther a little bit, and this is that mountain right up there where you see another fortress on top.
Oh. One over here?
Yes. Yeah. So Lerna, Argos, Mycenae, and Naphlion and Tiryns in the middle. And for those of you that remember, Franci Cave, where people were living as early as 10, 20,000 BC, that's down the coast down there. I've never been there, but it's down the coast about 10 miles. And this is the Gulf of Argos that you're looking at. Okay, let's go to the House of the Child. 50s and 1960s. And you understand that in the world of education, and that includes everything from the Discovery Channel to PhD scholars, it takes a while for things to disseminate. It's not like, Schliemann discovers Troy and then 6 months later everybody understands everything about the Bronze Age. So this was discovered in the 1950s. By the time they issue all the publications, which take a number of years to get everybody to write what they need and edit it and so on, it's the 1960s. I mean, I was born in 1950. I'm in college in 1968. And so when I was in college, this was new stuff. And when I say new stuff, I mean it was to the point where it was not really, it hadn't really filtered through the system yet. So when I went to college, high school and college, and I was interested in the classics, from the time when I was a kid, I mean, you didn't learn this stuff. It didn't exist in a way. Troy, the Trojan War, Homer, the Iliad was like the beginning of time. Everything else was kind of unimportant. But over the past 30 years or so, as I went through college, graduate school, then professional, and teaching, all this stuff gets incorporated into your thinking, into your understanding of the ancient world, and now it's perfectly clear to me, so I can explain to you, as a part of your basic education, that Greece in the Bronze Age is a direct antecedent to what happens in Homer and so on. And we're constantly pushing our knowledge of human race back into time. It's a great thing. When you read scholars of the 17th century, 18th century, they didn't know anything. I mean, they didn't even know the Bronze Age existed. They didn't know dinosaurs existed, for that matter. So, in the humanities, these kinds of discoveries just help us understand more and more about what went on in early man and the development of civilization. This House of the Tiles is a rather extraordinary building. Now remember, you've got to remake this in your eyes, in your mind's eye, and the modern concrete protection kind of helps because you're looking at least a two-story construction. There's a stairway right over there, and there's another one back on that side. So we know there were 2 stories, at least, presumably that's all. The tiles that you see in the wall, this was called the House of the Tiles by archaeologists. We had no idea what it was called originally.
but they found so many roof tiles, and they used them to shore up parts in the wall that had collapsed. As you can see, it's just stone and mortar. And anyway, so that's what you're looking at. It's not that the ancient people made the walls out of the tiles. The archaeologists put them in there to help finish off what was destroyed. You can see a plan of in the black right there. Of course, you have the same thing in your red guide, and you can see that there are multiple entrances and exits. There you can see the several stairways that are in there as well, and some small rooms and some larger rooms. This central room right here, this is a kind of vestibule here, and you come in this way, and there's an entrance into the next room, and that is the largest room in at least this floor.